Welcome back. Welcome back to the last session of these 3 days. And I want to start this session again thanking someone. And these are my fantastic guys. Joanna, Laura, Alessia, Matilde, Gaia, Nicolò, Lia, Candela, Samuele, Carlo, Gaia, and Sofia. Thank you very much. They were a huge part of the show and of this also setup of the conference. So it was very important to have them on board for me. So we call this session Take a Chair. I think that was the proper name for the final session that came out from the discussion of the UNESCO chair in the past 2 days. But I thought it was also an occasion to bring some design in. So before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge warmly Campeggi Company for making this session possible through the generous loan of these remarkable folding chairs from their historical archive, and Davide Biancucci, my assistant and product design collaborator, designer and product specialist, for his support in letting us having those historical pieces. And you can see their description and timing in the posters here in the room. A folding chair, we choose folding chair deliberately. A folding chair is a fascinating object. It speaks of temporariness, but also readiness. It can be opened anywhere, inviting conversation wherever people decide to gather. It is light enough to move with you, yet comfortable enough to stay for a while. A folding chair reminds us that a changing position is easy. Sometimes we move to find a better place, sometimes we stay still, waiting, observing, thinking, even imagining. A folding chair reminds us that changing position is easy. Oh, sorry, I will read again. Today, these chairs become more an invitation than a furniture piece. They become an invitation to take a chair, to join the conversation, to shift the perspective, to contribute a question, an idea, or a challenge. Not because we are looking for consensus, again, but because the future of anticipation research can only be built by moving between different viewpoints. So if any moment you feel you have something that this community should not ignore, we have organized the discussion also to let you in and start the conversation. So let's start thinking with us. I leave the floor to Real for explaining how this will work.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here. It's been spectacular. Of course, this is my 6th conference, anticipation conference. They're all different. They all have different places, but in particular, different times. The world is a very different place than it was 2 years ago. and then it's very different than it was 12 years ago, 13 years ago when we were in Trento. So that's, I think, something we want to reflect upon, and we want to try to invite and surface how that has landed with you. We're going to have a few testimonials to get things started, but the purpose of this session is really to help all of us reflect together about what this means. What does it mean to have an anticipation conference? What does it mean to talk about futures literacy together? Why are we doing that now? And what are our thoughts about how we're going to take it forward? So that's the purpose of this session. I want to just recap very briefly that we had two previous sessions on the first day and the second day about the UNESCO Chair's research agenda. So we had voices, people talking about theory, deeper understanding of anticipatory assumptions, the relationship between neuroscience and the ability to anticipate, theory of images of the future and the imagination, the ontological roots of the imaginal, futures literacy is a competence space, knowledge, skills, and consciousness, the psychology of anticipatory systems and processes, frames, epistemology follows the ontology of anticipatory system, processes, and the frames that they're ASP frames. What I'm trying to bring forward was that we had a really, I think, rich and diverse show and tell about what it means to explore the theory of anticipation. Just a brief point that it's been a controversial and quite often discussed issue. Is there a theory of the future? What is the theory of the future? Are there theories of the future? And one of the aspects of this ongoing conversation, and one reason that the Anticipation Conference exists, is because there's an effort to understand what such theories might be, and to take the adventurous step of proposing some theories of the future. And so that was the discussion in the first day, reflecting on what people have been doing. We also talked about methods, because if you have a theory, you need methods in order to try to reveal whether or not that theory corresponds with the world as you experience it. And so these methods are something that require innovation, particularly when the theory changes, and in our current context where we become hopefully more aware that there are many ways of knowing. Those ways of knowing that are the methods need to be explored. And that's also part of what the Anticipation Conference is about, the theories of anticipation and the methods for exploring what those theories mean. And we had a number of issues that came up: collective intelligence co-design to enable the surfacing of anticipatory systems and processes frames, working with local organizations to connect with local communities, the diversity of pedagogies of futures literacies, very important issue. As you invite people to experience the future, one of the questions is, how do you design that? And then when you do engage in learning about the future, what is it telling you? What evidence is it producing? How do you understand what's going on? How do you know whether people are learning or not? How do you know whether or not that learning corresponds to a theory of what you're trying to learn about? Working on organizations to walk on both legs, anticipation for the future, anticipation for emergence, introducing futures literacies in leadership studies, fostering futures literacies through the learning by doing, using play. Play is, of course, a fantastic method for exposing, and there were many games organized. There was including the doctoral summer school, where there was the use of games to explore our assumptions. So these are all techniques, they're methods for us to understand anticipation. And building bridges between the research communities and institutions, that again involves finding ways to expose what's going on when a community and those institutions interact. It could be a school, it could be an NGO, it could be government, it could be a company. And how does it relate to the community in which they sit, and how does that expose and reveal different aspects of anticipation? So all of that generates evidence, different kinds of evidence. It's not necessarily empiricist or numerical evidence, but it's evidence about different anticipatory assumptions, how people use the hero's journey, the narrative structures that inform people's imagination. I mean, it's clear, I think, for everybody here that the future can only be imagined. So the question becomes, how do we understand what that means, how it functions, what kind of impact it might have? And we've all seen very much, when you invite people to think about the future, very, very often they give you techno-dystopia, they give you some sort of, if only there was a great hero who could save us. So this is very common, and we can identify those kinds of things from the evidence. So now, just having given you a quick survey of what that's about, and to reinforce the point that I'm sure most of you read in the program, there are 40 UNESCO chairs. And those chairs were the result of a concerted effort to create a network as part of UNESCO's function as a global laboratory of ideas. And I had the privilege and the good fortune to be at UNESCO from 2012 to 2022, and I worked with many of the people here in the room and many others to create this network and to make it a living network for pushing forward our attempts to understand anticipation. So now, to kind of connect to that experience and get us rolling, because we want you to also talk about your experiences with anticipation, futures literacy, right here and now. I'm going to ask, who is number one? Luce, to come up first.
Introduce yourself. Okay. Wow. What chair? I love camping, so this feels like a campfire. I'll pick this one. Hello, good afternoon. My name is Loes Damhoff. I'm a UNESCO chair. The official title of my chair is Futures Literacy in Higher Education, and I work at Hanze University of Applied Sciences in Groningen, the northern part of the Netherlands. 10 years ago, I was in a kind of a stagnant phase of my career as an educator because I was developing 21st century skills, but I always felt I'm designing curricula for students, for jobs that don't exist, for a future that doesn't exist. But I realized what I really want my students to learn is how to embrace uncertainty. But I just didn't know, how do you do that? How do you prepare for students for uncertainty, until I encountered Riel Miller, who gave a speech or a talk, and I thought, futures literacy, this actually might be the answer. So this is how I entered the field of anticipation, through Riel's work and the futures literacy framework. So that's all I knew in the beginning, and it was only later that I discovered there was a lot more in the futures field, but I always saw it as that I wasn't thinking about futures, but I was thinking about how we think about futures. So anticipation has always been my entry point for talking and thinking about future images. That was 10 years ago. Now I'm entering a third phase of the UNESCO chair. And I started working in this field by doing a lot of future literacy laboratories. But very soon we moved on to a more capability approach within my institution, thinking that, well, there's no discipline yet. It's transdisciplinary, so all students should have this capability. But if that means, then it means that all teachers should have this capability, and all managers and the executive board, the whole institution should become futures literate. What that meant exactly, we were not quite sure. We were developing that as a strategy. But now, in this phase that we feel, yes, that is still very true, this capability approach for a more sustainable to really nurture this capability, make it more sustainable. But we also need a lot more research. And over the years, we'll be doing a lot of research to capture the impact, because that's what people want to know. That what do you do? What do you see? How does it land? And that's also very challenging. But what I've learned in all these training programs and labs over the years, entering the third term now, is that difference, future literacy is about difference. The one person's dream is not a person's nightmare. And every lab and every workshop is very location, time, and location specific. And it's not as much about building upon, but every time it's a different experience. I've also learned that that these labs that we are organizing are moments in time where we practice this capability. And I think that that in the future is not about the future per se of future literacy, but it's very much about the present, what Ivana was saying this morning. Is that it's really about understanding the world around us better. And we see it as such is that we are surrounded by, in these times of perceived heightened uncertainty, times are not more uncertain, they just are perceived as more uncertain, it becomes really important to question those narratives that have become very stuck. Because we are very limited in the way we use the future, the narratives, the dominant paradigms and narratives become very stuck. And futures literacy offers us opportunities, and anticipation does, to find the cracks, to see the cracks in those dominant narratives, just to see is there a little bit of light coming through this that I can explore and see different ways of doing and being and acting in the world. It's not earth-shattering, does not offer a solution or a magic pill or, you know, the roadway to a better future, but it might be the reality or a new reality, new world, understanding of the world that we need in the present. So that's why I think anticipation is extremely important. It was important 10 years ago, but 10 years ago it was very new. I was a pioneer. I didn't really know what I was doing. So I was just trying things out, experimenting, and I've come to learn that as a pioneer, you're operating in a system, ecosystem that can sometimes be a little bit resistant towards you trying something new. And it's very easy to come from a pioneer, become a pain in the ass. And once you are a pain in the ass, maybe some of you recognize that, it's really difficult to get back into the pioneering shape of things. That's why I think we need this community is incredibly important. That we share and negotiate shared meaning, as Riel always says, that we share our stories, our research, and that we support each other. Because it's not always easy. It's difficult work sometimes. There's not a lot of money in it, at least not how I'm doing it, but it's never lonely. And I think that's really important. And in every lab, but also in this community, but in every little lab, it gives space to give voice to people who not always have a voice, who do not always have the time, the luxury to think and to slow down. And I think in this particular time, it's more important than ever. So this is very briefly my story, and I invite all of you to share yours as well. And I'm inviting another, oh, are you reflecting? No, yeah, Martin, welcome to the campfire.
Thank you very much, Luce. And hello, everyone. Well, just to get the formalities out of the way, I'm also part of the Riel fan club. If I'm here today, it is also very much thanks to Riel. I'm a UNESCO chair on the future of value, of all strange things. And it's actually a wonderful way to explore a lot of the limiting assumptions we have about the future, but also about the present, very much so. And actually, that's kind of what led me on this journey, because what I didn't say, I conveniently omitted. Shame is a deep, dark secret. I'm a UNESCO chair in a business school. And I did notice that this session is called, who took the chairs? And well, I think the answer is very simple. And not only did they take them, but they're sitting on them, and they're very possessive about their seats, as Ivana's beautiful presentation this morning showed us. There is a very dominant power structure, and unfortunately, as educators and as a business school, we have become weapons of mass destruction. We are at the forefront of this very clearly. So, and anticipation is precisely, I think, the nexus where all of this happens. Because anticipation is precisely what they have weaponized pretty much and used to their advantage. Excuse me, I'm saying they, but of course I'm part of the guilty as charged, okay? I'm just kind of trying to step aside, but very much guilty as charged. So all this to say that I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but that's really what drives me. That's really what drives the chair. That's really why I'm here. That's why I really appreciate so much the community, the collective, the discussions that we have here. Because that's really, if we're not pushing, if we're not trying to actually question those very basic assumptions of who's sitting on the chair, what is that agenda, and why is there this growing sense of disillusionment and dissonance that we're all feeling? And Chinese medicine, for those of you who know, have this beautiful thing that, if we're not aligned in terms of perception, meaning, and action, something's off. And I think clearly we're not aligned. I think we feel it all, what we see, the meaning we make out of it, shared or not, imposed or emergent, and the actions we take are clearly not aligned. So from a very spiritual perspective, as well as an ecological and a social perspective, we are out of balance. We're sick. And I hope that and I think not even I just hope, in fact, there's a whole discussion about hope that it would be interesting to have, but I very much hope that we can shift that slightly and contribute to changing these questions, to finding a little bit more of alignment among these things, and to heal together. So that's my little bit, that's my story. And I believe I have the privilege to pass the stage to Maya. Come up here, Maya.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Luz. Thank you, Rio. Thank you, Politecnico. Thank you, friends and family here. I'm dropping this. So yeah, let's talk. Falamos, hablamos, parlons del futurible, futuros, el mustaqbal. Vámonos, totalos, off the rails, wind in our sails. Big picture in the details. Riding the rapids, throwing the dice. Eyes on the prize. Not yet long now what will be, what we cannot see. A time, a place, a space. Who's afraid to be lost in the maze? No. So the relevance of anticipation and futures literacy is precisely in this maze, and the need for people to be able to not just escape it, avoid it, get underneath it, but also to undo it, or to do different things than follow that path that the maze dictates. We are feeling lost. Many are feeling lost in this situation of the present with its roots in the past and its continuations into the future. And so futures literacy and anticipation are able to equip us to avoid the singular path the maze dictates. And the word dominance has been used by every single speaker, and I think it will be by the following ones as well. It allows us, to in diversity, to open up what we can imagine, what we do. It's not just, I said, let's talk. It's not just conversation, of course. There's also the practices that this conversation, wants to stimulate. And as far as I'm concerned, we've been at this, the diversity inside this field, inside this grouping, this community, a conference like this, is really very important, and it's historically been present. I was already in 2014 at my first Futures Literacy Lab, which was about futures literacy, so reflexivity also really rules in this context a lot of the time. And I also went to the first Anticipation conference, and we interviewed many of the speakers and participants there, together with my husband, who's in the room again today as well. He always sneaks into our do's. And there's the historical diversity. This has been going on for a long time. We've been building our ideas, our practices. It's not new. It's also based on things that happened before, on thoughts we all had before, on experiments and ways of working and playing that we've all engaged in prior to calling them anticipation and futures literacy as well. And so I wanted to, for me it's important that the diversity comes from that historical building, which we need to be continuing, and we need to continue to do it with, the diversity of who we are today, because that's the other version of the diversity here. We are scholars, we're practitioners, we're hybrids of the two, we are students, we are retired already, we have all kinds of people here. We're futurists, we're designers, we're artists, we're activists, we're business people, we are in governance. It's important that all of us can actually work together to equip each other and ourselves to be able to even move under the weight of dominance. And so I want to, since my time is up, indication comes here, just finish with a last bit of rhyme. The reason this is relevant is so that we can see more, listen better, and orient, diverging from the path onto which we were sent, by how we mutated with our tools, how we related, and what we learned in schools. The future, my dears, is here, to choose what we sow, to unlearn what we know, and to see why friction is needed for flow. So the next person is you. Oh, and now I have to, sure, shit. Hello, say it yourself. Sorry, I haven't practiced your first name, but Del Carmen Arias Gonzalez, I can do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's almost a joke, but no, it's my name. No. And in fact, well, you need to read it as if it was written with an S. Xochitl. Yeah. When I am with Anglophones, I say something like, you can call me so. How? So, you can call me so. So everybody calls me like that. I am working in the first time I have, because history is always important. I think the first time we started to work on design and futures was in 10 years ago with Manuela, Roberto Poli, and many others in 2014. And from that moment, probably we have a little bit forgotten of that. Because now I remember that Circa once have talked about how Finland is a so historical place to do foresight. And the only thing she explained is because of its geographical position. So making sense of why, what does it mean to me to do futures literacy is related also because of a geographical reason. I come from Mexico. I don't know if you know where is Mexico placed, even if we are in the World Cup 2026. But we have on the north the neighbor called United States of America, and everybody else thinks that we are placed in South America. So for me, making sense of doing futures literacy today, it's about thresholds and interstices. I mean, those places that help us probably think and share about dealing with complexity. And we're trying to do it in that way. Personally, I come from two disciplines that are related with mediation. One is design, the other is semiotics. So that's also a threshold of making sense. For Los was saying about that it's about difference, and normally, yes, meaning and making sense in the Saussurean tradition is about, difference. So noticing difference, noticing thresholds, and trying to observe what is emerging. So that's probably for me the most important part today to explore. I squat a UNESCO chair with, really, real can say. But that UNESCO chair is about anticipatory leadership. That sounds like not very plural. I think the role, the figure in the sense that we give to the idea in my practice in our practice as designers and our practice as semioticians is always plural. I have learned from colleagues and masters that about the importance of pluralization of future studies and even the word of future. I think from the point of view of semiotics and design, what are interested in doing mediations, the next level, the next second order or metacognitive level that is given by the idea of futures allows us to go like thinner in those thresholds of meaning and trying to discover the instant, no? Like in a it's like future studies should be like something for me today, like haiku, no? Like capturing those moments where we could probably approach the unknown. So that's my role, and I would took, if you don't mind, that chair. But not without receiving our beautiful and great host, Manuela Celli, that I'm going to accompany from here.
Thank you. Thank you, Soshil. So I definitely don't have a chair, but I have provided 7 in order to allow all of us to be part of this conversation, because that was the main aim of the conference. Gathering the community that wants to speak about the situation in which we are and the reason for which it is necessary to speak now about anticipation, anticipatory literacy, future literacy, why we need. I also like very much the perspective that Ivana gave us today, shifting to this idea of a literacy connected with the time perception, because it seemed to me even deeper as an idea, wider, more inclusive in a certain sense, connected with the understanding that different ways of perceiving future may change, perceiving time, may change our ideas about future. So, of course, here I have to take the point of view of the fact that I'm a designer as a background. But you have also to know that I was one of the first starting this kind of academic path in Italy, because I was enrolled here in the first edition of a design course that was ever built up in Italy. Before, it wasn't a university topic. So I've always thought, when I come into the relationship with anticipation and with future studies, I thought that our discipline had something in common, because we were not really recognized by the university system. We were a little bit neglected. And I thought that it was because we were dealing with something that was not touchable yet. And I'm quoting here a sentence from Paolo Antonelli that says, "People think that design is styling. Design is not a style, is not about shaping the shell, and not caring about courage. Good design is a Renaissance attitude that combines technology, cognitive science, human need, and beauty to produce something that the world didn't know was missing." When we produce novelty, we're kind of creating something that before wasn't existing. And when you see it, like this chair, you see, oh, it's beautiful. It folds very well. Look at how it works. I should have thought to it, oh, it should be easy to think to this solution. But you think it easy because it's already there. If it wasn't there, you couldn't even imagine that this thing was existing, no? So, when I had the chance, after my doctorate and starting my, let's say, first research around the relationship between design and future studies, I start from a very practical side, from a phenomenological layer, finding cases where companies were producing ideas, not for the market, but for the very far future, not to imagine really the product that would have been usable in 50 years, but just to imagine the possible trajectories through those objects. So that was an amazing experience, because it taught me that through the materialization of something, you can also give shape to the possible direction. You can open path. You're not closing by materializing it. You're creating better conversation about those possible futures that may be also connected with very critical perspectives and critical futures we don't want to address. So I claim that there is a sort of very particular designerly ways of knowing which is connected with the future dimension, and that has to do with this sort of envisioning capacity, but also bridging immaterial and material side. And this is where I think we should build our cooperation.
Great. You'll see there's 2 empty chairs. So we're looking for people to come up to be part of those chairs. It's your turn to take a chair. Don't be shy, please. The question that we've been exploring, as you have understood, is why are futures literacy and anticipation relevant for you today? I think we've just had 5 wonderful explorations of that relevance, but of course it's very important for us to continue to share, collect, diffuse, negotiate the different perspectives that we all have. So who would like to come up and take their turn with one of these chairs? Come up, Candace. Wait,
Come on up. Come on up. You get a mic and a chair.
This is nerve-wracking. So, should I just sit down, or do I have to say something? Whatever I want. Do I have to answer this question? I have to answer this question, right? Is it what it is? Or just sit down? Go. Okay, I just want to make a brief kind of remark, because I want to say that I haven't met you yet, Dr. Martin, but I also came from the dark side, the business school, and now I'm kind of getting into the kind of the bright zone of anticipation. But I just want to kind of share a little bit of how I came to really embrace anticipation. And obviously, I work with Professor Jan Clark on the audience, and he kind of introduces me to foresight. But one of the things that I found when I was leading corporate planning retreat, so I was the head of strategy for a company in Canada. And my aha moment came when I actually was building a strategic vision for the organization. I asked the executives one question. I said, if you were the owner of the company, what would be the mission and purpose of the organization as a starting point? Shockingly, they couldn't answer the question. They actually pushed back on my question. And what they said is that I am not the owner. I really don't know, and I need the board to tell me what it is. So that is that lack of futures literacy and anticipation. And so that actually took me the journey of doing my PhD, which is on values and purpose. And I didn't realize that embedded in my research is anticipation, because it needs to anchor on your values and purpose in order for you to build a vision for tomorrow. So that's kind of my brief answer to why this is relevant for me. Thank you.
Actually, can I? Yeah. So actually, one of my favorite quotes from Rial. Yeah, I know it's a fan club speaking. Is that when we think about future literacy, very much about the present, is that once you said, Rial, the only way we can show future generations that we care is to live by our values in the present. I think that's really beautiful. Just want to say. Hi, who are you? Oh,
hello, I'm Fernando Boza. I'm from Brazil. I'm a colleague of Fabio. And I'm a different animal in this room because I'm a medical doctor. And I come from, my background, it's critical care. Then much of my work during more than 20 years, it was taking decisions under very few, very high uncertainty. And in this last maybe 15 years, I've been working on epidemics and in research, but also advising government, working with WHO, and much in the preparedness field. And now I run a large consortium of 74 research networks on epidemics. And during COVID, but even before COVID, was very clear for me that this kind of peripheral blindness is part of our perspective of this kind of health crisis. And just after the COVID end, we had encounter that was very very nice. That was I met Philippe Koch, and at that moment we identified a large synergy in identity in our perspectives, and we start to work together. And much of my work in these last years was to work with more vulnerabilized communities in Brazil, favelas, indigenous territories, thinking about, with local organizations, think about health, but sustainability, technology. Much of my work also is using technology to improve health in some way. And we start to use different strategies, including futures literacy, together with these communities. And after that, we decide to build together this new chair. It's a baby chair, it's not so fancy. This chair was just approved this year. But this baby chair is very ambitious because it's 3 countries, 3 different institutions, and these involve Brazil, Portugal, and France, business administration school, a medical school, and a National Institute of Health, of Public Health in Brazil. Then, in this perspective, we are working in how to include anticipation in the governance of health crisis, how to rethink the spaces of health, what is a hospital, how to anticipate the needs of people related to health, but what is the future of medical education, and what are the new skills for doctors. And also, in this much of our work also is how to work with these communities, especially the local organizations, to think about change. But for other side, this include, and Philippe is very involved also in the methodological perspective, working with Real and futures literacy, how to include sociology of imaginary together in the field. We are proposing a master now in Paris in anticipation that involves futures literacy, and also new frameworks, especially to work with this more vulnerable communities. Then we are pretty new, but very ambitious, and thank you for the opportunity.
More voices. I think there was some, Makeda, did I see? Yeah, yeah, we're going to go around, so. And then in the back, yeah.
Hello. Hi. Hello. My name is Makeda Gershenson, and I wanted to pause for myself, and I wanted to bring in why futures literacy is important, relevant for me today, requires that I pause and think about the material that these chairs are made of, the intentionality of humans to take space, and I wanted to bring in all my ancestors. I wanted to pause and leave space for all the voices. We talk often about, we talk a lot, and we talk about making the invisible visible. And I think that there's a beauty in being silent and creating some spaciousness to hear what's not being said. And so for me, I just wanted what makes anticipation relevant for me today in this body on this land is knowing that I'm a guest. I'm a guest. And I think about all of the ways that humans try to make sense of that which is incomprehensible, and that there's so much beauty and there's so much joy as a technology that's available to us when we actually are not, it's not about what's relevant for me, it's about what's relevant for the people, the earth, the animals that are not being named, or all of the frameworks that aren't frameworks, all of the spaces. So when I think about why futures literacy is relevant for me today, it's because it's been, there are competencies and skills and habits and mindsets and ways of being that don't need a framework, that there are embodied ways of being. And I think about just slowing down and really just slowing down a little bit and creating space for all the chairs that could have been filled with voices, all the chairs and the spaces that are here. I don't need to say much. I spend a lot of my time moving in this body on different lands, trying to prove myself, and so I just wanted to I don't actually need a chair. I want to say thank you to everything, and so I just wanted to show up and make space for my ancestors and say thank you.
Back there. Yeah. Somebody go ahead. Yeah, go sit at the end. Go sit at the end there. We're gonna do it's musical chairs, so we're gonna expand the chairs into musical chairs. We don't have the music playing, but this is the idea. We're gonna diversify and hear different voices.
Hi, I'm Shadi Roshahbaz. I'm a newcomer to the field. I did not know design existed until this conference, Beyond Graphic Design. And I'm from the field of peace and conflict studies from the University of Melbourne. Why are future literacy and anticipation important for me? To be here, I needed to anticipate, to apply for a visa in March, only for it to be granted 23 hours before I arrived. I need to be future literate to find everyone here in this room on the internet, find their research interests, cling to them, to take information back to the University of Melbourne, where there's a future wasteland, so that I can eventually graduate and hopefully get a chair later on in life. Why is that important to me? I'm Iranian. And if I don't anticipate, we're all screwed. Yes, we are. Thank you. And also because for me to be here, it's, as my friend, newly made friend said, I need to be thankful to all the people who have anticipated over and over, from all the people that Ivana cited this morning to her own research, which is now the backbone of mine, and hopefully many more to come. And I think what matters more at this juncture of time, and hopefully for all of us who have our chairs down in the society, is to remember that we give, and we will continue to give to the future generations. Because if I, in my short lifetime of 32 years, want to be thinking of another 32, I will never see my land free and my people happy. But if I think of it in 200-year terms, then I'll have a purpose when I go to bed tonight. And I think that's what we all need to do, to remember what we do, why we do it, and to give it so freely to others. And that's why I would like to have a chair.
Thanks, Rio. We have an empty. I must say, this does feel like I'm entering some kind of religious activity. I want to take us back to 2019, the first Futures Literacy Summit that Real organized in UNESCO Paris. and we had a workshop on ethics and values. I was asked to report back, and I wrote a report to report back, and I've never had the chance to give it. So, so now I'm going to do it. It's called Ode to an Empty Chair. Ethics means asking questions, such as, why is this chair empty? What kind of chair is it? Who or what should be sitting there? Being explicit about values is ethical. The chair represents those who should be included but are not. It's an empty UNESCO chair. Perhaps it's the most ethical of all UNESCO chairs. It has no a priori assertion of particular futures or values, no critique of powerful influences, no positionality and context, even though context is everything. Many real-world challenges threaten the chair's non-occupants. Those are for real. The challenges, threats, or opportunities are not created by professional foresight. They emerge through human interactions and produce real impacts on privacy from ungoverned surveillance capitalism, hunger from greed, destruction from overconsumption, human judgment from artificial judgment, but also happiness from the possibility of fulfillment. The empty chair cannot evaluate consequences, nor care for the future. How can this be most ethical? Oops. How can this be most ethical? What is ethical in a world created as unintended consequences, but narrated and monitored by anticipatory governance of intended consequences? The empty chair tells a story of the hubris of humanity. Hubris of rationality as authenticity, and when we look at the empty chair in future, it may be humanity that's missing. Thank you.
So, why futures literacy and anticipation is relevant to me? In 2 words, because every time I apply them, I feel I liberate my mind and I empower whomever I relate with and we apply it. This morning, Professor Milosevic, in her very much inspiring keynote speech, thank you, Professor, wherever you are, I cannot see you. She used a very important to me quote. She said that the way we imagine the future has a past. So this past is dominated by visual narratives. And words get into our cognition through images. So knowing thyself, which I've heard so many times from Real and in our conversations, means to be able to explore our visuality, how we see, how we are made or allowed or taught, etc., to see and make sense of. So in this sense, every time I apply futures literacy in the workshops I run and visual literacy in the sense of exploring visuality, I feel as if I hold an arc, and the more I pull it backwards, the more I support the revealing or the exploration of anticipatory assumptions, because exactly they hold their roots in the past. So the more you go in the past, the more you broaden the horizon in front of you. So that's why futures literacy and anticipation is really a big chapter and important to me. Thank you.
Other voices? Yeah.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Suzanne Stein, and I'm from OCAD University. And why is it important for me today? Just a little bit of a background on myself. I used to work in business. I used to say that while I worked there too. And we were in systems integration in the 1990s. And those infrastructure pieces needed to last for a long time, 10 years or more, and updated. And I was an ethnographer working in technology and looking for methods beyond the present in terms of everyday attitudes, perceptions, and beliefs, and what had not hit consciousness that we needed, that might be coming, that we should be designing for. So that's how I was feeling in the 90s. I moved to academia away from business for a couple of reasons. One is to be able to research, explore, and develop new colleagues in terms of the expansion of these methods and theories, but also to be able to work and help train and bring others and mentor others into the profession was a really important thing for me. I was tired of opening up a Word document, and before I've even written anything, maybe before I've even thought anything, it said company confidential on it. So I wanted to move into a place where knowledge could flow and I could share, and I wanted to mentor. So I've been working formally in Foresight for a few decades. And one of my worries right now is that with the diffusion and our newfound uptake and popularity of anticipation, futures, and foresight, is that part of the diffusion of it is that the issues that we've been looking at for a couple of decades and more have not been addressed, and our so-called runway is running out, which is a little bit like a last gasp. That's my concern. But on the other hand, I'm very encouraged to see that the more that our work and the different kinds of work that people are doing is moving and flourishing and disseminating and circulating and being added to, and the co-creation, that things are changing, and that gives me great courage, and that's why I'm doing it today.
Afternoon, Kobus van Wijngaard, University of South Africa, here from with great colleagues from psychology, development studies, information science, sociology, English literature, and I'm from theology. And about 2 years ago, we were sitting, when you were in conversation with a bunch of theologians from South Africa, and over dinner we made this tongue-in-the-cheek joke that theologians have been studying the future for the longest of times. You remember that? And in a subfield called eschatology. And one of the key insights that those studying theology and that particular section of it will always share is that what people of faith think about the future determines everything that they do in the present. Sounds familiar? Ted, you said it's like a religious gathering. As I entered on Wednesday, and it was all about hope, it did feel a little bit like that. And hope is a dangerous category. What we hope for can destroy, or it can heal. So why are futures literacy and anticipation relevant for me today? We had many comments around the importance of geography. So we come from South Africa. 32 years ago, the whole world was looking at the so-called miracle called Democratic South Africa, where particular ideas around the future determined how a society would progress. Our first conversation, actually on the bus towards the conference on Wednesday, was with a colleague from Ireland that were on the bus with some of the South Africans. And we talked about how ideas around the past and the future inform how our societies progress. And as South Africans, we know that the past is foreclosed. It's something that we cannot go back to in the most profound of ways. We are 32 years into democracy. We're seeing fundamental changes in that so-called miracle happening in the democratic South Africa in the coming years. And what people anticipate, what they hope for, the future of that country is going to have profound impacts. And understanding that, being able to trace that, being able to surface that, might be immensely important for the livelihoods of millions of people.
You're leaving. Well, I expected something better, right? Hello, I'm Tamás Gáspár from the Budapest University, Hungary. And while I expected something else, as Riel was turning to me to contribute with something. But this is part, I think, of futures literacy and anticipation, that, of course, things change. So, concerning the question, why is it relevant? Now, for me, I have, well, two answers, if you let me share. One is completely personal. A couple of years ago, I was really struck. I was completely confused in the futures field, and I turned to many friends like Riel, Ted, Sohail, Peter Bishop, Fabienne, everybody who I met, that please help me, because I'm in a serious problem. You know, I teach, I make a research on foresight, and I teach foresight mainly in a business school or a university. However, I myself, you know, if I look back to the real important events in my life, I never planned them, I never expected them, including the futures field itself. It was just by chance, right? I didn't know anything about the futures field. I didn't choose that. So I was completely confused at how to proceed. And I think when I asked that, am I really crazy? And maybe, yeah, I think it was Peter Bishop who answered that, yes, you are. However, it is normal. So at the moment when we talk about futures literacy, basically this is what it is all about, and anticipation, right? That I'm still confused, but I don't care any longer. Yeah, thank you. And the other thing is that it is much more social, that, you know, some months ago in Hungary, there were some very fundamental political changes, which we are very, very happy with. And I didn't know, thank you, I didn't know that at that time, or on that night, half of the world was staring at Hungary, what kind of lessons it shows. And you know, the main point was that, that this election was really something at stake, because it was, so everybody hoped the change, but nobody expected. It seemed to be completely hopeful, so nobody believed that it is possible to have any change, because the infrastructure, media, everything was colonized by the government. However, it happened. And it was basically the new generation, our children, who didn't want this future at all. And my daughter was also in the streets dancing the whole night. And the main point concerning why it is really relevant to be future literate and to have anticipation, that now there is a new generation these 20s, among them my daughter as well, who have their generational experience that when it is completely hopeless, it is still possible to change. And I think that's something. Thank you.
Hello and thank you. And oof, this is scary. And the reason that I'm doing this is that because we teach our students to take a step out of their comfort zone. And I always say that I never ask my students to do something that I would never do. So here I am, stepping out of my comfort zone. And my name is Julia Fursova, and I'm here with my colleague Karol Nemerov. We are from University of New Brunswick, School of Leadership Studies. University of New Brunswick, it's okay if you don't know, it's located in the province of New Brunswick in Canada. A small, beautiful province surrounded by endless forests and beautiful ocean. I love the place. So why are futures literacy and anticipation relevant for you today? Because primarily, I don't want the futures of the future generations to be endless reiterations of the toxic past. Because I am standing here, I am everything that I was not supposed to be. Because my journey wasn't linear. Because I always anticipated something different. And I was lucky enough to encounter books and people who helped me to develop and then actualize that anticipation. And this is what I want to continue doing with other people, younger people especially. And I'm very new to this field. Until meeting Riel, I also didn't know this exists. This is my first Future Literacy Conference. This is also, I want to say, Riel, this is the most interdisciplinary space that I've ever been to. And I've always identified and labeled myself as interdisciplinarian. So that probably says something. And it's also, it's broad enough, yet it's focused enough. And I like it, and it's fun. So I haven't quite finished, so I don't know how to take this. It's like shut up and take a chair or and pass the mic. But so I just wanted to add that my entry point into future literacies is actually program evaluation. And I facilitate and teach and research program evaluation primarily in the nonprofit sector. And when I ask people why to evaluate, or frequently an answer is, well, because we want to continue doing what we've been doing, and you know the funder wants report. To which I say that yes and no, because we want to continue doing what we've been doing, yes, maybe, but we want to learn how to do better and do better. And that's also my entry into future literacies, because we need collectively learn how to do better, because as teams, as organizations, as individuals, teams, organizations, and the whole countries, and the whole planet even, we are caught in a very toxic power dynamics. And we need to change it. So we will do our best until we learn how to do better, and then we will do better. I'm just wrapping it up with a quote from Maya Angelou, and now I'm done, and I'll take a chair and I'll pass the mic. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I am Marie, and I was actually contemplating whether or not I should speak, but I fought my way to be here, so I might as well just use the opportunity to speak. So I prepared something. So I'm from the Philippines, by the way, University of the Philippines. Anyone? Yeah, no? Futures literacy and anticipation feel especially relevant to me because I'm speaking from within a conference space where participation itself reflects an even global privilege. I say this is a privilege because I had to fight for funding to be here, and Manuela and Victoria knows that. Many participants, as I can see, come from the global north, and the conversations, as I hear, are still largely shaped by Western institutions, theories, and vocabularies. As the only participant from the Philippines and one of the few voices from Southeast Asia, my presence here reminds me why Filipino futurity matters. It is a way of insisting that future's knowledge must also come from our languages, histories, uncertainties, and ways of imagining what is yet to come. At the same time, I'm reminded that to think about the future can itself be a privilege. For many people, especially in our country, those fighting to survive, the urgent question is not what the world will look like decades from now, but they are more worried about what they need to eat today, how to get through the present, and how to keep one's family alive. This is precisely why the Global South, the Philippines, Southeast Asia, also deserves a seat at the table too. Futures literacy and anticipation cannot remain conversations shaped mainly by the global north. Southeast Asia, the Philippines, and the wider global south have their own philosophies, concepts, and their own lived experiences of uncertainty. Filipino futurity is my way of saying that our concepts matter too, our experiences count, and our futures must also be spoken in our own terms. Thank you.
We're just about done. Thank you very much for that. So there was the last question of anything urgent, another voice that needs to be to speak up. We've got Rumiana. Okay, you ready to come up? Sure. It's okay. You can stay. You can sit. You can sit.
Thank you. I just want to add one perspective. I'm not going to tell my life story. I'm not going to tell my future story either. But I just want to kind of, following up from the conversations here already, the testimonies, I want to bring up another Italian name, and that's Rossi Braidotti. Rossi Braidotti says, "We are all in this together, but we are not one and the same." And I think that's important because also from her perspective of post-humanism, anticipation is the only capability of life itself that has a temporal and future-oriented sensitivity or sensibility. And the post-human or the more than human, I wanted to bring that into the room as well as the Filipino voices and all the other voices of difference, as Fabio was saying yesterday, of animal life, of plant life, of mountain life, of river life, of ancestors. So yeah, there is something about anticipation that is different from foresight and is different from future studies, which are much more human-oriented, human-centered. And I think the decentering of the human, although we're always in the middle, but we shouldn't be in the center. I think that's important for anticipation studies too, and I value that, and that gives me purpose in kind of these last, maybe not last, I hope not, but kind of later years of life that I can bring some wisdom in the thinking around these things. So that gives me a lot of hope as well. Hope without guarantees. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Well, I don't know what the next. Yeah, so we're at the end. Let me just segue. Thank you, Rumiana. Please take a seat. Yeah, grab a seat. Just to make that little segue, and I think it perhaps is something that is worth saying from the point of view of all the speeches that we heard, the keynote speeches, which I think had a very important cumulative and philosophical but also practical component to them, and that's this point about anticipation. One of the reasons that this conference exists as a distinct conference is because the idea of anticipation was rooted in biology and is prior to humans. Now, that gives us a different entry point into diversity. So it's not human-constructed diversity that's first. It comes later, of course, and is very, very important. But it seems to me that it's worth underscoring this aspect, that the idea that anticipation is an inherent attribute of all living organisms also allows us to construct our ways of thinking that are compatible with complexity. In other words, we're not trying to impose or to somehow play an external role to the world we live in. So the fact that the anticipation word is there, all words are inadequate from my point of view. I'm always frustrated with words. But the word future, we've already heard about how it's used to colonize. And the issue of how temporality enters into our thinking is absolutely fundamental and crucial, but we heard right from the outset the importance of making ontological distinctions between risk and uncertainty, between a map and the openness, and the simultaneity of the open and the closed in every moment of this universe, and the fact that difference is such a pervasive aspect of this universe gives us an opportunity, in fact, to take advantage of anticipation as something that is really open from the point of view of how we use it. And I think that that's an opportunity for this conference to have a distinctive role in the current context, where I believe it wouldn't be exaggerated to say that the inability, the lack of competency of humans to deal with difference will kill us. And so the question becomes, how can we grow up and become better at living with difference? And that's where anticipation as a primordial characteristic of all living organisms, and futures literacy as the way that humans can refine, advance, learn more about our capacity to imagine and the implications that has for perception first, choice second, is, I think, what we're trying to construct here together. And I just wanted to make a little reference to this question of how you create something new. It's already been referred to. There are moments when it feels maybe like it's defensive in a way, that you're trying to defend something that's precious because it's new and it's developing. And that's true here. There's some aspects of this where it's a new field, and it's a new area of exploration, and you have to nurture it. You have to be kind and gentle and create the community. But at the same time, when something is new and developing like that, progress is incredible. So we all notice it with children. Wow, look at the way they grew. So when you're at the beginning, there's leaps and bounds. When you start from a small scale, the changes, even relative to the absolute, can be immense. So I'm very encouraged from that perspective that we created a community that can nurture openness, diversity, and exploration, and at the same time make, I think, significant advances from the point of view of what we're trying to do together, which is to live with more meaning in the world, to be in today. So thank you very much. Thank you to the panel, and over to you, Manuela.
So, after the poem, fantastic poem from Ted Fuller, I feel I cannot sit on any chair. I would ever think about it anytime I take a chair. I don't even want to stand on that stuff, because I feel that the way in which we cooperate during these 3 days was a very collective way of producing knowledge, advancement, and probably preferred or at least shared perspectives. I want to thank Pari, please come, who was the engine of the session that just closed. Paria Bagheri. She's going to have her PhD. Please introduce yourself a little bit.
Okay.
The one who don't.
Well, my name is Paria Bagheri Muqaddam. Oh, this is the Western version. Is Paria Bagheri Muqaddam. Yeah, I'm doing a PhD at University of Florence, Laboratory Design for Sustainability. I had the chance to have amazing mentors in this very long journey of anticipation, adaptation in my design journey. And I'm working on the intersection of design with anticipation and philosophy, and I owe it to this community, really, that I am standing here and found the passion I wanted. Thank you.
She is also the author of these fantastic schemes that resembles what has happened in all the keynotes and initial discussion. So this one was my introduction, the starting point, where we were kind of questioning how to stay with the unknown. And what she points out most were that we need slowness. And unexpectedly, slowness came out even in other keynote speeches and in other discussions that we have. So probably to practice hope, which was one of the questions, how can we practice hope? We have to rest, we have to pause, as you were pointing out. I'm a kind of active person. So when something happens, I tend to react immediately, to do something, to repair, you know? But in the past 3 years, I guess, I've started changing my mind. I understand that if you react too quickly, you don't really know how you're going to manage the result of your actions. And sometimes problem goes away even if you don't do anything. So probably slowness is one of the keywords. But we need to practice also to be slow, especially some of us that work in some fields where we are pushed to produce, to do quicker stuff. And unfortunately, Fabio has left, but this was one of the central points also of his keynote. So apart from the initial questions, I think that Betty was changing our perspectives on many points, on many points. And it was a bit shocking, the idea that possibility is a shadow cast on our past, instead that path opens into our future. But I mean, this only shifts our attention also in how we consider what has just happened, because we consider, at least in the Western world, we consider future ahead and the past behind, but in other culture, it's the future which is behind, because you cannot see it. And again, it's the way in which we perceive time that is changing, the way in which we face future. So, I mean, there are many interesting keywords coming out. Let me take my notes. Another important keyword here was attention. Because if we take the time, is to maybe analyze, maybe not analyze, maybe only meditate. Leave some concept there in order to sometimes embody them, sometimes feel instead that think. The issue of responsibility is coming out on many different layers. And I think that, for example, in Fabio's keynote, where we were focused in a completely different realm, which is the one of the nature, but a nature which is not other than human, but a nature that embodies any kind of life. I cannot reproduce the descriptions of the different ways in which plants do behave, but it was astonishing understanding how much anticipation, how much care there is in all of those different forms of life. And to me, there was another very important, powerful point, 2 points. The images that he used were from Salgado. And that kind of photography, for sure, is a form of art, but it's a form of art that is a tentative to stop a very ecstatic moment and to communicate powerful images, which can be metaphor. The indigenous sleep will forever be connected in my mind with the idea of dreams and the fact that we have forgot how to dream. I don't know what effect it did to you, but when I got home that night, I said, I would like to learn how to dream better. Also because I think that my sleep would improve if I can kind of, drive my dreams. And this morning with Ivana was really emotional. She was touching us. She was ironic and contemporary, so dense in the concept that she was able to explain in a such beautiful and connected way. And it was also a lesson of elegance for me. And I feel very lucky to have her with us. And I don't have much else to say. I think that the panel of this afternoon was fantastic because it left the space even to interact a bit more between us outside the session with very strict format, But I think I want to end only the fact that for me, probably there were 2 guiding principles to organize the conference. Care and courage. Because to speak about hope in an academic community and paradoxes and uncertainty and the tremendous void of unknown, I guess it requires a bit of courage and also I hope that I gave you the chance to do something different and to do something out of the box with these questions. And I hope that more will come. It was a pleasure hosting you. Thank you very much.